Monuments were built here. During the Roman period, nearly all of them are destroyed, but an interesting small chapter still stand in it, which built by King Hadrian and dedicated to god Cerberus. The reasons for Luxor temple construction. The first reason this tool is timing. The throne of King Ammon, heart of the sword, on the throne before the legend of the divine verse which was recorded on the wall of the divine bird's room, and the inner side of the timber which represents the king, with his mother Moaya and his wife, Queen T, were not of royal blood. The second reason to celebrate so-called Orbit Festival together with a record. Luxor timber is regarded as a cult temple from the temple in ancient Egypt. This temple, one of the most impressive temple in Egypt due to its simplicity and structure, also the unique orientation and this symbol inside it. There are three kind of religion. The first one, this is the ancient Egyptian religion which represented in the temple itself. The second one, this is represent the Christianity which represented in the church. The third one, this is represented the Islam which represents also in the mosque of Abu Hajjaj. It is known in ancient Egypt by the name of Epitrusid, which means the southern harem for God. Among the timber locates to the east bank of the Nile alongside and burial to the Nile. This site was a sacred place, for the ancient Egyptian had ended his sacred journey at this place, and he began created the universe. The founder of the temple, Ahmed Kotov, was regarded as the real founder of Luxor temple, especially in 1390 before Christ, and the temple are targeted by successive kings, including King Grantham and Alexander the Great. Sphinx Avenue, this is the way connected between Karnak Timble and Luxor. It is of the biggest number of a celebration known in ancient Egypt, like the Festival of Men, the New Year Day Festival, and the Hipster Festival. But the third reason, December, was a political propaganda for the rolling king, the first pylon built by King Ramses during the first 3 years of his reign, and it consists of 2 towers. Each one of them measures 65 meter wide and 24 meter high, and the upper part of the towers are crowned by trees of coronation. The visitor can see 4 holes in each tower, which were holding to the flags in ancient Egypt. Towers was something like fortification, so inside it we can know it a lot of room. It was accumulation for the soldiers, and according to the scene on the wall, this is represent King Ramses in his war against the Hittites, or it is known by the name of Kaladesh Battery in front of the first pylon. King Grimes is the second, erected 2 granite obelisk, one of them still standing here, which high 25 meter tall and wide 254 trains, but the other one removed in 18 certified as a gift from Muhammad Ali Pasha to King of France, and it erected in the conquered square. In 1836 the obelisk erected on our thighs were the 4 Papuans, before clapping and celebrating. It is building begun a new kingdom during the reign of King Aman. Hotel deserved but took its final form during the 30th dynasty and the reign of King Nithani. Put the first this way measures more than 2.5 kilometer. And composed of 2 rows of a human-headed sphinx, each one of them carefully from a single block of sandstone and placed on a rectangular base. The main function of the Sphinx Avenue was to serve the positional way of the Orbit Festival, from Karnak Timble to Luxor Timber. The courtyard, which located between the first pylon and Sphinx Avenue, was built by King Ganatini for the first, but several by sunrise. The inscription which curve it on these 4 sides, representing the names and titles of King Rhymes, is the second with God among Pra. And by the way, The ancient Egyptian erected the obelisk inside the temple, because they want detriment the timber to the audience. And also it was a sign for a cult, because it is referring to god Amura or Gadra, god of the sun. In ancient Egypt, in front of the gate there are two seated statues of King Ramses. This statue is made out of black granite, and high 7 meters. They represent King Ramses the seated on the throne, and wearing the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. On the base of this statue, there are a representation for the Simitawi symbol of Upper and Lower Egypt, or a kind of unification between Upper and Lower Egypt, and the figures of the Nile gods, gathering the two lands near to the feet of the king. There are small figures, maybe referring to the king's daughter or the king's wife. The base was depicted in a high relief, was a cartoon containing the names of the foreign countries and a captive thrown to the ground. The great court of King Rams is the second behind the first pylon. Locates the first court of King Rams is the second. Mud and Kunsu, originally built by Queen and user by King Cosmos, is reserved then by King Ramses. 4 graceful providers columns stand on its particular. The meteor shrine belonged to god Amun, the left one belonged to goddess Mud, and the third one belonged to Kunsu. The triple shrine used resting place during the procession at the Orbit festival. All the scene in the shrines, representing the king kneels front of the sacred park, and presenting offering to them. Apple Judge Mosque. On the left side of the visitor in the first court locate the mosque and the tomb of Apple, which made out of a sandstorm like the first pylon, and meters 57 meter long and 51 meters wide. This court was a 2 rows of 74 columns around its 4 sides, this column supporting the null rule of the court, all of them by claws papyrus capital, and between each 2 columns there is a standing statue. For king glances, almost all of them are perfectly destroyed, and the east and the west wall of the court has a sided entrance to the audience in the right-hand side of the visitors, directly behind the pylon's tower. There are 3 small shrines, all which known as the tribal shrine of the Syrian territory Amun. Judge, which dates back to the Fatmite period and the minority of it built in the 13th century. We can see the mosque built on a high platform, and this is because the timber was covered by a sand up till the end of the 19th century. And the authority of Egyptian archaeology representing in the French Egyptologist Justin Mespiro, who removed the sand and made a recovering to the timber. And the symbol taken it is for which we can see nowadays. The creation and the scene of the first court. The wall of the first court are decorated with a different scene. For example, the king making the offerings to the gods, and God to her is recording all of the gifts. One of the scenes representing the king attending a major festival, and Luxor, which called the Festival of God, Men, which event took place during the harvest season, or the summer season. But the most interesting thing, around the southwest corner of the court, which representing a collection of fat balls, lead to the timber for sacrifice, walking before them 17th son of Francis. The second, their names and titles written beside each figure, but the most important one of them prays after this of his father. And the king is represented welcoming by disappreciation followed by denial. God in the lower register, Queen Nefertari is depicted holding a test room, and accompanied by a king of her daughter. Before them is a finally drawing representation of the first pylon, that shows the flags flying, the 2 obliques and the statue U. Thank you. Please subscribe.